now, fresh off what I think she's dubbed the Showdown in Charlottetown, is Tracy Wilson from the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. And I cannot believe what she pulled off yesterday, but I also can believe it because if anyone was going to do it, it was going to be Tracy and the CCFR. So, Tracy, explain to us what happened and why Charlottetown is so important.
Well, I don't know if I can live up to all of that. There was a lot of other people involved, so I don't want to take all the credit. Yeah, this was amazing. We're here in Charlottetown. I'm just getting ready for a flight back to Ottawa. And we kind of intervened on a city council meeting where they were going to be voting on a motion to help the Liberals, perpetrate this gun grab against their citizens. And you and I were talking about this, that we were actually here a day early because there was a meeting that was facilitated by Angie McDonald from the Big Boot Gun Club. So shout out to her. She does a great job. And there was a variety of different stakeholders there. There was some gun shops and different gun owners and, different stakeholders, but there was also law enforcement. There was RCMP. There was some city councilors. Most of them did not join us, but there was a few. The mayor showed up and this was his idea entirely. Local law enforcement, the CFO was there. There was a whole crew of people there. And so we went in and we did it like a Q&A because you have to remember the only information that these city councils or town councils receive is what they're getting from Gary Anandis Angry. And he has been a very busy little beaver running around lobbying all these municipalities and their police forces to help him. And so they thought they were doing this great thing. They're, going to help their constituents get paid for their banned guns. And this is for public safety. And they had it all wrong. So we were able to intervene with a bunch of stats and information and literally flip that vote because we were 100% going to lose that vote. Not only did we win the vote and the motion was defeated to help the Liberals, but it was unanimous. 10 out of 10 city councilors voted against it. And they even had little speeches and spoke against the actions by the Liberal government. So huge win out here in the little island of PEI.
And, it appears to me that the Liberals are going to these, as you said before we started rolling, these economically disadvantaged but Liberal voting places, reliably Liberal voting places, to try to claim that their gun grab program is a success. But as you know, it totally isn't, because in Cape Breton, they only got 22 firearms turned in at a cost of about $7,000 a piece. But yet they persist. In fact, they are planning to launch this in Winnipeg, which is really important that people understand that they can make a difference if they start organizing now and focusing their attention at Winnipeg.
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately, it's already a done deal in Winnipeg. Like the municipality there has signed a deal with the federal government. Now, I got some information yesterday that they are sort of, having some buyer's remorse. I think they thought everybody was going to sign on to this. Let's go ahead and make our deal. And you have to remember, there's a great big check that comes with signing these deals. With Winnipeg, I believe it was a $2 million deal.
Yes.
That our taxpayers' dollars are going to these municipalities. And of course, everybody needs some money for infrastructure, for their police budgets, for everything. So they're desperate. And Gary knows this. And he's very skilled at, also attaching future infrastructure promises and funding to these things. So yes, we will absolutely be dealing with, with Winnipeg. Sorry, I'm hoarse from cheering last night.
Talking.
Yeah, and all the cheering. We will absolutely be going to Winnipeg and doing something there. I don't know that there's any way they can turn back the clock. But of course, in every other municipality in the country, the important thing is to get out in front of it and find out if your council's talking about it. And if they are, put some real valid information in front of them. Because at the end of the day, these people can't be experts on everything. I mean, they should be worried about picking up your garbage and worrying about roads and things that municipalities do really well. They shouldn't be worrying about federal liberal gun control attacks on law-abiding citizens. So they don't have the information they need. And it's your job as a gun owner. We don't have the luxury of sitting back and doing nothing. So, my motto is be everywhere, do everything, just keep fighting. And we see that it is failing everywhere. It's a mess.
can't be done in Alberta. Again, we were talking about this before we started rolling for a couple of different reasons. The magical policy resolutions that passed at the UCP AGM, which enforced our right to firearms ownership, but also our right to self-defense. But also, about a year ago, the feds tried to strike these weird deals with the progressive big city mayors on infrastructure stuff. And it basically tied infrastructure spending to green targets, and Calgary tried to do it. I think Edmonton sort of got a wild hair and thought that they might do it. And the province stepped in and said, you exist as a municipality only at the pleasure of the province, and we will dissolve you if you go around us and strike deals with the Fed. So we're lucky here that we're a little bit more insulated from the craziness. But I wanted to talk to you about, because I haven't talked to you since the UCP AGM. Mm-hmm. What a victory that is for firearms owners to have somebody like Danielle Smith reinforcing our rights.
Well, and not just firearms owners, but all Albertans. Like, imagine a premier who loves her people so much that she would implement things to protect you from violent repeat offenders who want to kick in your door, steal your stuff, hurt you, worse, hurt your kids, do God knows what to you. Like, imagine having well, I guess you can imagine. But here in Ontario, I can't imagine having a leader, a premier who loves me so much that she would stick her neck out like that. I just, it's the rest of us sitting across Canada are looking at that with envy. I mean, nobody should be made to be a victim in their castle, right? So, Alberta understands freedom at a whole different level than the rest of the country, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the room when she announced that, and I think that was really just the loudest cheer that came out of the crowd. And there were a lot of cheers in that speech that she gave. It was a very red meat conservative speech. She was hitting like all the things that, conservatives care about. But when she talked about firearms rights and our ability to defend our own lives and the lives of our families inside of our own homes without having to worry about whether or not you're going to jail for it, just enormous cheers.
I'm announcing today that next week, our UCP government will be introducing a new motion under the Alberta Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act that will, if passed in the legislature, instruct all provincial entities, including our municipalities and law enforcement agencies, to refuse to enforce or prosecute under the federal gun seizure program. Now, the Sovereignty Act motion will also make it clear that these agencies will not enforce or prosecute Albertans defending their homes and families from intruders.
This shouldn't even be a controversial topic.
Right.
The fact that it is kind of shows how far weird we've gone as a country. I mean, your most basic human right is to protect your life and the life of your family and your children. Like, it should not be a controversial issue at all.
I want to talk about what's happening in Saskatchewan, because while we were making those announcements in Alberta, Saskatchewan was making announcements of their own. And I love Saskatchewan's approach to what they're doing. If the feds think they're going to grab your guns, well, we're going to license the people who are going to grab them. But also, we're not going to fund the agency that does the licensing, which is kind of cheeky and perfectly Scott Moe. But they're doing something else. So tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right. So, eventually, this is the problem with there's not a problem, but this is the difficulty with the Alberta and Saskatchewan models, is not allowing any confiscations there, which is great and protects you in the meantime, because we have that protection of the amnesty. But of course, that's at the pleasure of the Liberal government, which is terrifying. So someday that will either run out or they'll cancel it or whatnot. And unfortunately, the protections that Alberta and Saskatchewan have in place don't actually protect you from being criminally charged. So Saskatchewan has done a couple of things. Number one, they've also indicated to their law enforcement that they would be recommending not to charge gun owners for possession of those firearms. But if you're worried about that, people with previously restricted firearms like AR-15s, they know you've got them. They know they're in your house. And if they come there, you will be charged with illegal possession of a prohibited device, which comes with a very lengthy jail term. So what Saskatchewan is saying is, look, we don't want you to get arrested for what's in your house that you've owned legally and without issue for decades or generations. So we'll store them for you. Safe temporary legal storage. And I know some people are like, wait, does this mean to prevent the feds from stealing my guns, Saskatchewan will? No, no. It's temporary safe storage so that you are not in possession of those firearms. And it's a stopgap measure. It can't last forever. But I think, we've been between the leaked audio, the return strikes from Alberta and Saskatchewan, these municipal councils going this way, we are blowing 50 cal size holes in the side of this gun ban. And eventually it has to fail. They promised they would be rolling it out nationwide by the end of the year. That's in 3 weeks. So I don't know about you, but I know a little bit about logistics, and picking up about 2 million guns across the country, the size of Canada, in the next 3 weeks is not going to happen. So, yeah.
And yet they seem hell-bent on proceeding. Like, they're missing all their targets. They don't even know how many firearms are out there. They're musing about adding more firearms to the list. And yet they just keep talking about how this needs to be done 5.5 years out. So dangerous that we've had them in our possession for 5.5 years. Why are they so hell-bent on doing this?
Well, the minister was pretty clear in that leaked audio that I leaked out on behalf of his constituent, that why they're doing this is to appease Quebec. And, I'm not trying to throw shade at our friends in Quebec. There's lots of gun owners and hunters and friends over there in Quebec, but it's their government. And most importantly, you have to remember
the votes.
In the last election, they added somebody very important to their cabinet. And that is Natalie Provost, who, of course, is the leader of the anti-gun lobby. So she's made it her life work and her mission, out of the horror of the tragedy that she survived, to attack millions of good people who had nothing to do with it. I had a guy reach out to me the other day, 23-year-old gun owner, and he said, I don't understand why they're going to take my things for what happened then. I wasn't even alive yet.
Right.
And I'm like, that's, he's right. Why are millions of people being punished for the crimes of one madman? So, I eventually, I think the Prime Minister is going to have to take a look at, when you've got provinces, all these councils, everybody stacking up against you, and the only person running around lobbying for it and cheering for it is one caucus member. I think eventually he's going to have to weigh the pros and the cons and just abandon the program entirely.
I think so too. I think outside of the property rights issue, the scapegoating the innocent issue, the allocation of resources directed at the innocent versus criminals issue, I think it's just going to become just a price tag issue, really. Yeah. We can't afford this. The money's not there, although I shouldn't give them ideas because they just seem to always invent money in debt. But in a time where they're supposed to be exercising fiscal restraint, we've got a banker at the head of the government. This is it feels like just a fiscal impossibility to pull this thing off, too.
Yeah. Well, it's fiscally impossible as well as logistically. I mean,
sure.
I think about just what's in my own personal home that's been banned and what that looks like physically, and then magnify that by millions, right? It is logistically impossible, and it's really hard when you don't have anyone to help you. And when you've got the provinces and the municipalities stacking up saying, forget it. We want nothing to do with your program. If you want to do it, you figure it out. I mean, what are they going to do? Send Liberal MPs to knock on our doors? It's impossible. It's not going to happen. I've said that since the beginning. And I think the political capital that they were getting out of this, I think they've wrung that sponge dry. When I'm in Facebook mommy groups and, places that normies hang out, and see what the average Canadian who doesn't own guns, what they're saying about this. 5 years ago, they were cheering for it. And now they are totally against it. In fact, they're asking where they can get a firearms course. So, nice. I think the well is dry for the Liberals on this. And it's just a matter of time before the Prime Minister is going to have to give in and admit defeat on this and focus his time, resources, and efforts on crime, violence, gun smuggling, and repeat violent offenders.
Yeah, I hope you're right. Although we see before us all the things the Liberals are willing to do to appease Quebec, including the restrictions on religious freedom in Bill C9, and then the MOU that isn't really an MOU with regard to Alberta pipelines. Like they voted down a pipeline motion taken directly from the language of the MOU last night. Like they'll do anything to not lose a single vote in Quebec. But my concern is that, and I don't know if it's so much a concern anymore or a fantasy, but this sort of stuff really drives a fracture in Confederation. And as much as, there are people like me who are like, dream of being free, I'm not sure Prime Minister Mark Carney wants to be the Prime Minister that oversees the end of Confederation.
No, and I mean, he promised to kind of, you think back to when he won the election by a slim margin, but he won nonetheless. And he talked about how it was time to end the division, kind of these Trudeau era policies, and how divided we had become as a country. And that regardless of whether you voted for him or not, he was going to be a leader for everyone. And, everyone had a voice at the table so far. That hasn't materialized. But I think he's going to be forced into these situations because Trudeau made a lot of hefty promises and pretty much failed on every one of them. So I don't envy Carney being in the position to try and clean it up. I just hope that he comes to his senses sooner rather than later before it's too late.
I know that you have to sort of skedaddle very soon, but I want to talk about Yukon. Now, the election of Currie Dixon was very exciting. It was very exciting because I knew, I've been paying attention to Currie Dixon since before the Liberals were in power, when he was in the previous premier's cabinet up there. And when he won, I was like, he's joining Alberta. Yeah. This is it. He's joining Alberta. And it makes perfect sense. It's a very, very strong gun culture up there. People are subsistence hunters. Lots of hunting guides up there. And so it just seemed unfathomable to me that the Liberal government up there, in collusion with the NDP, because they had a coalition government up there, that they were supportive of the Liberals' plans to snatch guns from law-abiding Yukoners, but that block of provinces and now territories supporting, fighting back against the gun grab, it just keeps growing.
Yeah, it just keeps growing, and I mean it's the right thing to do. To think that any government would look at targeting the innocent people within their population while being soft on the violent, the criminals, it's insane to me. So I know a lot of work went into, making sure that these policies were front and center. You're right, Currie Dixon is a total champion of freedom. Our friends Yukon Strong and Donovan Dewis at CATF, those guys put in a lot of work, and they're right there beside him, making sure that they get this right. And that's really important. And that's what I mean. This, citizen politics is, it's vital, it's important, and it works, and it's being proven over and over again. So wherever you are in Canada listening to this, whatever your jurisdiction, you don't have the luxury of just sitting at home and hoping someone else is doing that work for you. And the people, those of us running around all over the place, trying to spread ourselves out, trying to get everything done, we need your help, right? So it's really important and really valuable that people are taking interest in politics and standing up for what they think is right. We have to remind these people they're not kings. There are no kings in this. These people work for us. They are servants of the public. They work for us, and it's time they're reminded of that.
Yeah, we can't necessarily vote our way out of this. We tried.
We tried.
not all that long ago. We have to get involved. It's not just look, you guys are doing great work, but the gun lobby is bigger than Tracy and Rod.
Oh yeah.
It's all of us, right? Like it's all of us. We have to show up at these things because it's happening to us. You guys are the tip of the spear. You guys have the connections. But it doesn't happen without the rest of us putting some work into.
Yeah, and every single win we've had along the way is because of boots on the ground. It's not me initiating contact with these city councils or with the premiers. It's people reaching out and saying, hey, these are the things I want. These are the things that are important to me. This is not fair what's going on, and you need to stand up for me. And a politician's number one priority is always to stay in power. So
Yep.
they'll sway with whatever looks like it'll keep them in power. So that's why it's really important for our voices to be way louder. And the key to winning any of this is overwhelming everything. Overwhelm every city council meeting where they're talking about it. Overwhelm AGMs for your provincial governments. Just show up to these things in huge numbers, organize
Yep.
and overwhelm them, and send lots of letters. I know people think it doesn't work. It does, because
Yep.
the anti-gunners, they've just got the ear of the Liberals. There has never been a single protester at any of this stuff that is in favor of it. It's only us
Yep.
opposing it. So we just have to be louder than they are and just keep going.
And that brings me to my next question before I let you go. How do people get involved in the CCFR? Because, I mean, frankly, you're a lobby group, but you're an advocacy group, and you are up against people who have the ear of the government
Yes.
every step of the way. And so,
Yes.
so you need the support, you need the help, you need the war chest, and you need people to sort of wear their advocacy on their sleeves, on their chest, wherever.
Right.
Because you want to show the Liberals that it's not a small statistical rounding error of people who care about these things.
Yeah. Well, the number one thing you can do to help us is become a member, because what that does, it's not just, it's $40 for an entire year. It's
Right.
not the $40. It's the ability to add to the size of our group. And we are by far the biggest group in the country, the biggest stakeholder on this issue. So the bigger we get, the more influential we are. But at the same time, we also need help. We need help at events. We need help at gun shows. We need help on letter writing campaigns. Reach out to us at volunteer@ccfr.ca and help us out. There's no minimum requirement or any, there's no chains around your neck. It's whatever you can do, however much or little of your time you can give. We need all the help we can get. Get involved in your local politics at every single level.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's always good deals on the CCFR stores. You can find us at ccfr.ca.
Some of the best merch in the country. I wish
Yeah.
our merch store was as nice as yours sometimes. I do.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks, Tracy. I'll let you skedaddle. I know that you've just had a whirlwind trip in Charlottetown and you're flying
Yes.
high on a big victory, but I know you have a flight to catch. Thank you so much for jumping on the show with me today and just bringing us up to speed and letting us know what we can do to help you fight for us.
Thanks, Sheila. I always appreciate the opportunity.